Welcome, everybody. Crawl into your interior cave and listen to The Hermit
and his wife, where we talk spirituality, parenting, Catholicism, inside and out. Hey, buddy.
Hello there.
How much coffee do you have in that mug?
There's not much. This is actually a picture of us in law school.
Back when we were young and carefree.
It's sort of funny to look at it this way, especially in the morning.
So today we're talking about a really big topic. It's kind of a taboo topic. It's kind of an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people, but so many have asked and reached out and wanted us to talk about it. So we're going to. We're doing something. We're pushing everyone's comfort zones, including our own. Maybe not my own.
Pushing the envelope.
I love to talk about uncomfortable things.
Okay.
Were you gonna tell them?
Yeah. Me. We're going to talk about sex.
And natural family planning and pregnancies and all of that. You just had a big gulp.
I don't know. Well, it's coffee. But I don't know about you guys, but so here, we're in the Archdiocese of the Twin Cities. We had to go through a series of... You had to meet,
marriage prep.
Marriage prep. You had to meet the priest, and then... But, if, there's a conference that you have to go to, talk about natural family planning. So other than that, that's about it.
Also, we didn't live in the same place when we were engaged.
Yeah.
So we actually had to get our NFP training from a friend who wasn't here. Yeah, I don't think it's talked about a lot in the church. There is like a little prep before you get married. Sometimes you might hear something from the pulpit. There are very few resources that discuss how do you navigate pacing of babies, especially, we're speaking specifically to our experience, which has been no miscarriage, no loss, no infertility, which is a whole different ball of wax. We see you, it's a different thing, but speaking authentically from our personal experience with natural family planning, it's like this field of flowers and there's this happy, vibrant young couple dancing through it that's like on the poster, and then below it's like, discover God's gift of life for your family. And you're like, this is going to be great. And in a way, sometimes it can be packaged a little bit or even received a little bit as like, what's Catholic birth control? So you just follow all the instructions, just like you would if you were using any method of birth control. You follow all the instructions and then you won't have a baby. It's like guaranteed Catholic version of not having a baby, which is actually not what it is at all. It's like a totally different mindset. Right?
Yeah, that's not a great label.
It's not, but I'm just saying it because I think there can be a lot of confusion about that, not just in the terminology, like for people in the church, but then people who are trying to practice NFP in their own mind, there can be a lot of blurring and difficulty. But you were, from like the actual teachings of Humanae Vitae perspective, how would you lay that out for people? You're our brains here.
Oh boy.
You're our researcher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we have to take a step back and just realize that married life, the end of marriage is the procreation, education of children. There it is. So the procreative aspect, having children. Some people aren't able to have children. If their marriage is still it's still a valid marriage. But for procreation, there's a lot that's involved with that. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing because you are you're sharing in the generative aspect of God's divine providence. So you're sharing in God's creative work, which is amazing. So the notion of the love between a husband and a wife actually taking on tangible form, a new person, like somebody who's going to exist for all eternity, and hopefully, had their voice to, praising God for all eternity in heaven. That's such a beautiful thing. But thinking about, family, once you, like you said, fast forward, okay, you've looked at the pictures, you're engaged, and then you get married, and then, and then child number one comes along, and you become a coffee addict, or
True confessions of the coffee addict. You were a coffee addict since like teen years.
That's true.
Friend.
Yeah, well.
Can't blame it on kids.
Yeah. Right. So thinking about, your family, it can be very challenging, just as far as, you can feel like your lips are barely above water. What's that?
Maybe your eyelids. You're talking about like as you continue to sex and as you engage in like the beautiful parts of marriage, feeling a little freaked out that you're going to have an avalanche of children.
Yeah, you might feel like you're having an avalanche of children, or
you feel a lot.
You're just sort of struggling with I don't know, even just the physical demands, especially if you have a number of younger children, which it just requires more, physical activity. Helping them change, helping them feed themselves, brush their teeth,
carrying them everywhere.
Making
sure they don't kill themselves.
Whatever it is. Right. So it can be sort of a daunting thing, but God gives us the graces when we need them. So I guess that's sort of just the lens of like the procreative aspect of a marital relationship. It's such a beautiful thing. It's such a powerful thing. But there's a sacrificial element that comes to it. Children they are gifts and they're entrusted to us as their parents, but it also requires a sacrifice on the parents' part. Love is always giving, right? Love is always diffusive of itself. It always wants to give of itself. So I guess the first part to talking about having sex, having children, being open to having children, is that you actually have to. Well, hopefully it's coming from the mindset of openness and sacrifice and giving of oneself. So that's sort of a backdrop, and Nell and I were talking about Humanae Vitae. Which is the encyclical letter from 1968, which was already starting to get to be a long time ago. 1968, Paul VI. So Humanae Vitae, which was actually kind of a surprise because at that time there was a big push, even within certain theologians were pushing for contraception, and a lot of people, common people, just lay people, were thinking that maybe the church were gonna take a different approach to it, and there was actually a commission that was set up, and there was a majority report and a minority report, and interestingly,
I didn't know there were.
Yeah, there was sort of
reports.
And so it was sort of, I think it was sort of leaked that the majority approach was sort of pushing for change, and then the minority report, which was written by Pope St. John Paul II, it was a minority report that actually became Humanae Vitae, which is what Paul VI did. Paul VI had a lot of interesting things in his pontificate, but Humanae Vitae was something that he nailed. So good for him.
Good for him.
Good for him. That's great. But Humanae Vitae specifically, and I guess the parts that we were talking about that we'll just kind of bring up here,
which you can also find on the Vatican website for free, translated in English for you, very conveniently. That's
right. Is going back to that notion that you talked about, which is natural family planning can be used. It's not contraception. You're still open to life. It relies upon the natural cycles in the female body, and but the mindset is that marriage is openness. You want to be open to children, but there might be some factors. What Paul VI referred to as serious reasons, grave reasons, for maybe not having children for a certain period of time, or maybe even an indefinite period of time. So it could be psychological. Maybe you have some physical issues going on. So those are, and we're not here to, tell.
Yeah, we don't have a list of grave reasons for you. Like, that's something for you and your family to figure out, to pray about, to take to a trusted, faithful priest, spiritual director to talk through. But the church kind of leaves it as there isn't a bright line rule. That's a lawyer term of like, these are the 10 reasons. If you fall outside of these specific reasons, you may not, follow your body's natural cycle to try to abstain conceiving a baby. they paint in broader strokes for you to be able to figure it out with your own conscience, with like a well-formed conscience. What are your grave reasons?
Yeah, well-formed conscience. That's an important thing. But still being open, because even if you are, taking a natural family planning approach, there's still an openness to life, because you might conceive when you're not necessarily thinking that, or the chances are lower, or much lower than if you're engaging in the marital act at a different time, like peak. So
is now the time?
I don't know, St. Joan. What do you think?
I'm wearing my St. Joan of Arc t-shirt. Got it at Zara in Las Vegas.
It's kind of a
2008. They don't make it anymore.
St. Joan.
She's got kind of a mullet.
I hope she doesn't have a mullet cut.
So this is our announcement. And every time a Catholic couple says they have an announcement, people are like, "You're pregnant," and I'm always like, "Well, not me, but I am." You guys, we are happily and like mind-blowingly surprised that we're expecting baby number 5.
This is news to me.
Oh yeah.
I'm
pregnant. This ties in really beautifully because we're talking about this theoretical stuff of like for NFP, for most couples who are really trying to be conservative to not conceive a baby, it means absence of like weeks and weeks, especially during peak when the female body actually would be excited to engage in the marital act, and using like the last few days before your period, but even so, God has chosen to give us this soul really unexpectedly, which is part of why you are always open. We aren't using birth control. You didn't have a vasectomy. It's possible, even though it like defies medical reality and charting, but it's possible. And that's a lot to get your brain around if you are thinking like, well, NFP is like my safeguard. Like I'll never have a baby. Because you just don't know what his plan is. We don't, literally, we have no idea what his plan is. I mean, his plan is for us to have another baby, presumably.
Yeah, so, after you've thought about, I'm actually thinking that maybe it's twins.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die.
I don't know. I'm just kidding.
I mean, I'm 37. You don't know.
Maybe the twin, maybe we could have
twins in my family.
mascots for the Minnesota
Oh my
Twins.
gosh. You're gonna have to help me nurse the babies if we have twins.
Wow. I think that so Humanae Vitae talked about serious reasons, grave reasons for maybe not trying specifically for to have a child. Again, like psychological reasons, physical reasons, something serious. Is that even if you've sort of you've talked about that, you've discerned that, God might say, well, that's really nice. That's great, but here you go.
But here you go. Here's the baby. I think this is important. The second half of our talk here about so many people I know, so many people, and especially people who've said it privately, have shared they've had unexpected surprise babies when they weren't expecting it, either because they had like fertility struggles and they're thrilled, or because they were really trying to abstain and they're shocked. And I think for us, it was a surprise. I mean, not an unwelcome surprise, because it's a new life, it's a new baby, it's a new soul. Whether the baby lives to be 100, the baby lives for another couple weeks in my womb, like the baby is a part of our family. This is an individual person. But to say like, it's okay for things to be a surprise, it doesn't mean like, oh, NFP didn't work, failed. Another Catholic family with 1 billion kids. Like, I mean, it's not a failure. It's like rewiring the conception of our control over our lives. Right? Which is hard. I'm not pretending this is easy. Took like 1 million pregnancy tests. There's definitely crying. Like, how did this happen? Oh my gosh, how am I going to handle like my other health problems? I've had 2 like earth-shatteringly terrible labor and delivery recoveries. The last 2 babies. Like, what if I have a 12-pound baby and I can't walk again for like physical therapy? Like all of the factors that were part of our grave reason for discerning to abstain, they kind of get crystallized. You're like, oh, okay, those were my reasons. And I had brought them to the Lord in prayer. And I had cried and prayed and been like, this is what I think I'm discerning for a family, Lord. And when God's like, that is beautiful, but I have a different plan for you. It's
That's
okay
true.
to rage out a little bit or be upset, but also to realize like, oh my gosh, this has got to be a really special baby. Like this is his plan.
That's
And that
true.
real surrender is really different than sitting here and being like, well, guys, NFP's worked for us, so just, find a good method. Here's a bunch of methods we've tried. Like, the reality is that we're still in God's hands. Like, as much control as we think we have over our fertility or our lives or all the crazy things happening in the world or our work or our success, like, we really are his children. He's caring for us in a way that we can't even see. Like, this is his gift to us. It's a gift that we were like, I don't know, Lord, I've got all this list. Like, it's an incredible gift.
Yeah, I think that that's one of the beautiful things about NFP is that, your point about NFP working, not working, is that NFP, even if you have you conceive, and it's not necessarily at a time, or it's at a time where you thought,
It's not
chances are really pretty low, is that you're still fundamentally open to life by having sex at any time, but not doing anything to actively prevent conception. That's one of the fundamental points of natural family planning, but is to still maintain that openness to life. So in a sense, it worked. Like we're still open to life, and we're able to conceive. It's such a beautiful thing. It's such a beautiful gift. That said, I'm getting creaky, old.
Oh, please. You are not old.
Bad back.
Back.
So there's a lot of humility that comes with it too. Like there's a lot of reliance that comes with relying on God's providence, and I think that's an important element too, and for us, for anybody, especially that has who's in a in a marriage, is that you do have to turn to our Lord and just kind of lay yourself at his feet and just ask him for what you need and just rely on him and not on ourselves, because I think it can be easy to rely on ourselves and say, okay, well, we've got it all figured out, here's what we're going to do and whatever, and so it's actually really good to that openness to life carries with it so many helpful things in our own.
That openness translates into openness in many other ways.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting idea.
It's not it's not easy, but then again, like the spiritual warfare, trying to grow in virtue, and but this is that's what we're here for, is to try to sanctify our time, sanctify our days, sanctify one another. The good of the spouses. You were partners.
I'm sure I'm very sanctifying to you.
So
what did you say last night?
I love the Carthusians, the Carthusian religious order. They actually still wear hair shirts. Sometimes Nell jokes that she's my hair shirt.
I am your hair shirt.
Really itchy. And
You said last night, I found the most annoying person I could and I married her so I could get to heaven. Is that what you said? I also am really sick. We've mentioned this in other episodes. I have hyperemesis gravidum. No, I can't remember how to say it. HG, hyperemesis, where I'm extremely sick up until the day of delivery. Like, with so many distinct memories of having a huge belly and, like, throwing up over my stomach, being like, I can't even reach over my belly to throw up wherever it was, the sink, toilet, bucket, a cup, wherever it was. You get good at throwing up in different places when you have hyperemesis. So for anyone out there who's like, oh my gosh, I'm also facing this, or I'm not sure, and I have all these other factors, like especially if you have hyperemesis and you're like, I'm looking down the barrel of, I'm 6 weeks now, so like 34 weeks of probably a lot of feeling awful and a lot of Magic School Bus on Netflix for the other kids. Like, you're not alone. Don't despair. There are tons of like hyperemesis support groups on Facebook and online, and you can always reach out to me. Girl, I get it. When people are like, why don't you wear those anti-nausea bands? Or you could have some crackers by your bed. That might help. And you're like, it doesn't help. That's okay. And also for us, we've always been super crunchy at birth, no pain meds, nothing. And to have a high risk pregnancy that you have other health factors, I'm 37, and then 2 like devastating down there deliveries. Whoop. Too much. Sorry for the men listening. But to say like, oh, we have to adjust and adapt to reality as it is. I canceled a bunch of work stuff for January, February, like being realistic about what I'm able to do, being realistic about how I can safely deliver the baby and I can survive delivery, like being realistic about the situation that's in front of you after the initial like surprise and whatever else. All the feelings are fair and valid after those simmer down, to say like, okay, let's make a family plan for how we're going to get through the next 7 months, however many months, 70 months, 34 weeks. You guys, the most precious part though of all of this was telling our kids. They were so excited. Like, I've never seen them so excited about anything. I mean, when we had our 4th, our oldest was like 6. So, I mean, he was excited-ish. Then we had a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and 2-year-old. I mean, people were excited-ish, but they didn't really understand. But to have a almost 10-year-old, 8-year-old, 6-year-old, and then our little naughty 3.5-year-old, to see their extreme joy, it just was incredible.
Yeah, I'm sort of banking on the older ones helping out with changing diapers. That's
Or just
That's
like
really-
getting a snack for the younger ones while I'm in bed nursing the baby forever.
Yeah. Well, that is one of the beautiful things about having multiple children, is that, I mean, they're there for one another too, and that's a really beautiful thing. So, it's good lessons for them too, and it is a beautiful thing to see the joy in siblings, to have another addition to the family. And that's not to say that especially for guys out there that maybe need a little extra whiskey to help things out. That's okay.
You did say we were going to talk about whiskey on our podcast, so there you finally brought it up.
Yeah. So
A little extra whiskey.
I think that was in the end notes to Humanae Vitae that Paul VI didn't necessarily keep. I think that
The end notes
The
had
reference-
a big asterisk, like
reference
if
to
you have an avalanche of children, you should have some whiskey on.
yeah that's fair. It's St. Thomas Aquinas' quote is "Drink to hilarity."
Drink to hilarity.
Until things are like funny.
Well,
Yeah. So.
Well, I think that we can put a big old bow on all of this to say, if you'd asked us 7 weeks ago to talk about NFP, and people did, I was like, oh gosh, like, what are we going to get into? Like, things you can and can't do to respect each other's bodies. It's like a really tender topic. Or like, which method, the Billings, the Marquette, the pea on a stick method, the Creighton, like which model. But I think that all of that a little bit has faded away, obviously because I am pregnant. But truly to remember that NFP is not birth control, and it's a mindset. So if you do feel tempted and you're struggling with viewing NFP as like your safeguard against another kid because of all the grave reasons and the serious factors in your life, and you're really clinging to that, to really take that to prayer and examine it and like loosen your grip. Also, that abstinence as part of a relationship is a normal rhythm, even for people who aren't Catholics and aren't following teachings. Like, intimacy isn't like a 24/7 thing for most human beings, like in a natural rhythm of our lives. So to not be afraid of exploring, like, what does it look like for us as a couple to really find other ways to love each other and connect and respect each other. Because NFP can really shred marriages. It can be really hard to not be able to be intimate for long periods of time. And to talk about that and find other people you can talk about that with. We have friends that we've been able to talk about without being gross, but talk about like the Catholic Church's teaching and all this stuff and the struggles that come along with it, so you feel less alone. That's part of why we're talking about this, because people feel really alone. It's a topic that people don't want to broach, or they feel uncomfortable, they feel awkward, and obviously we don't feel awkward talking about much of anything. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I really don't.
I'm just dragging you along for the ride.
That's right. I'm just here.
The hermit is here. What's your final takeaway for people?
Well, I think that's an excellent point. Is to loosen your grip. I also think that it is interesting that that in the marriage life, a lot of times God calls people to holiness when they have particular struggles or challenges. So sometimes that's a sign that God actually wants you to develop a particular virtue. So it's always been interesting to me that in the marriage life, even though having sex, engaging in the marital act is part of married life, and that's it makes it a unique thing. Is that actually for married couples, one of the things that you have to grow in is the virtue of chastity. You have to be able to control yourself. Use your right reason. You have to be able to respect your spouse. You have to so it's sort of like having dessert. You can't just have as much as you want, but you can have some. So like you said, it's not like anytime all the time sort of thing. Yeah. But it's hard to but that's where the virtue is that if you never if you're living a celibate life, you sort of that's just not part of your mindset. Like having sex and is just not there. So in a sense, you're not what do I want to say? You're not experiencing that. So I don't want to say it's easier. That's not what I'm trying to say. But
it's just a different mindset. Versus I'm sleeping in bed next to someone I find incredibly attractive and beautiful and morale is fine. I'd love to have a wonderful sex life with them right now, but we're not because of all of these reasons.
Yeah.
There's a tension there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literal tension.
Sexual tension.
Sexual tension.
Yeah. So that's always been kind of interesting to me, is that in the married life, chastity is actually something that I think we all have to grow in, but we have to sort of understand that, and it's but also and this is probably harder for guys. I don't know why, but it's just being able to talk, with your spouse. Like you have to be able to talk with your spouse about. I don't know what your approach is going to be, and your intimate life, and
talking about your intimate life is really important. That's like a whole nother podcast. We're bad at conclusions.
Wow.
We're just opening up new cans of worms.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, anyway, for all the married couples that are out there that have made it through to the what are we at, minute 27 here? Keep going. God's going to give you the graces that you need, and keep striving for holiness. Whatever your circumstances are, and be there for your spouse, be there with your for your husband, be there for your wife, and try to grow in holiness together. And if that means embracing another little person as part of your family, you can do it. You really can. So. Okay.
It's like a Minnesota goodbye.
I know.
We're having a Minnesota goodbye on our podcast show. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. Thanks for sharing in the joy of our news that we're sharing with the world now. And thanks for prayers for our family and for my sickness and the baby's health. And, it's all in God's hands.
Thanks, everybody.